Dan Gorringe, I have beef with you. And this is not satire. Dan Gorringe has absolutely called out the GOAT, and I will not stand for it. He has called out my GOAT, Cooper Johns. It will not be tolerated. King Cooper, we saw him earlier in the week, or well, late last week, on his backstage podcast with his father, Matty Johns, make a claim about the AFL copying the NRL. Heaps of backlash. People saying, oh, AFL way better. Well, AFL didn't sign the best broadcasting deal to date. Well, the biggest, I should say. And then they go, we've got bigger stadiums. We've got the best stadium in the world. The MCG isn't an AFL stadium. It is the Melbourne Cricket Ground. It is actually a cricket ground that gets used as an AFL stadium, which also gets used to display the best sport in the world. Rugby league, state of origin. I was there. I would know. You guys wouldn't. But what I'm trying to say is I have beef with Dan Gorringe. So Dan retaliated to Cooper Johns' post about AFL. And here, he's sledging Cooper, calling him stupid, and I don't like that. So, you know what I said? I'm pretty sure Dan Does Footy never won a preseason MVP. That is correct. You know what Dan Does Footy comes back with? You know what Dan Gorringe comes back with? Embarrassing that's even a thing. Oh, how dare you disrespect Cooper Johns even more. So you know what I said to that? Dan, it's crazy that Cooper Johns did more for a club in one preseason than what you have done in your whole career. Cop that, Dan. No response. He went quiet, and all his little AFL fanboys jumped in the comments and tried to sledge an honest man trying to make an honest living off an honest podcast. What's Not Sports. Cooper Johns is the GOAT. Don't ever sledge him. Dan, let's debate this. I would love to sit down and have a champion chat with you about it. Just in case you guys don't understand, this is actually satire. I do quite enjoy Dan Gorringe and his podcast, Dan Does Footy. It's pretty funny. I love the clips on Instagram. And I just thought I would comment on it, but it's the clout that I've deserved. I did get ratioed, but we don't talk about that because I still got hundreds of likes. For a guy that has 600k followers, and only got 100 more likes than me. I got 150. I think he only got 250. I'm going to take that as a win, Any content is good content. Any media is good media. So shout out What's Not Sports. We're here. And look, welcome to episode 83 of What's Not Sports. This is the Pulse Check. I'm your host, Will O'Connor, and that is my rant of Dan Gorringe. So you tell me. I did have a lot of support from some fans in the comment section. So you guys, you know who you are, staying true to What's Not Sports, and myself. So I thank you dearly there. And let's dive into today's podcast. We've talked already on the Dan Gorringe beef. Bang, done that, sorted that. Goodbye. We don't have to worry about that now. What we do have to worry about today, we got to talk about the NRLW. We've got to talk about the NRL. Pan Pac's on for the swimming. The Australians over in America at the moment. I think we just won the 50 butterfly, I just heard. Not 100% sure on that, but first Aussie gold over at Pan Pac's. That's very exciting at the moment. And then we finish off our session, our podcast, with the Fandemonium. So let's talk NRLW. Where did it leave us? Round 5, a couple upsets. And the milk prevails, if you know what I'm saying. Not quite that much in the NRL, but NRLW, the milk prevail. So let's have a look. Doggies versus Cowboys. We tipped the Cows. The Girls, they didn't get it done. The Dogs got the edge over them. Took out the win there. Sharks versus Titans. Had the Titans picked. They get the job done. We get our tip right there. The Wires versus Knights. Had the Knights tipped. I knew this was going to be a close one. I said it. But the Wires got over the Knights. last week, the Raiders versus Broncos. Now, Broncos hadn't lost a game yet. The Raiders girls going up against the top of the table. And I said it could be dismal. They're paying $5. And I said, I'm going to have to back them anyway to beat the Broncos. What do? They beat the Broncos, do the impossible, and show that they are a brute force and that there is hope for the Canberra Raiders in the 2026 season. The grand final day is still on the cards for Raiders supporters. So if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm probably stopping watching the boys this week and I'm flipping over to the girls and watching them. Dragons versus Tigers. We had the Tigers tip there. They get the win over the Dragons. Not much surprise there. And to finish it off, we had Roosters playing Parramatta. If we tipped Roosters, if you had any concerns about that or thoughts that Parramatta might win, they were paying $26 to win that game. Roosters absolutely destroyed them. About 20 minutes into the game, though, I thought Parramatta weren't that far out of touch. It was only 12-6, and then it absolutely turned into an absolute thrashing. And I don't think Parramatta scored another point. That was round 6 of the NRLW. Jeez. 6 rounds already done. Let's jump into what we saw in NRL round 23. Titans versus Cowboys. I had the Titans picked after the Cowboys' dismal, awful, embarrassing performance against the Roosters. They come back, they bounce back, they get a win over the Titans. No issues there. Waz versus Penrith. We had the Waz tipped, and you know what? Luke Metcalf. I don't see a world where Luke Metcalf shouldn't be the starting 7 for the Waz for the rest of the season. And that's a fact. If you don't agree with that, I'm sorry, but the way Luke Metcalf performed last week, it's just GOAT status. Honestly, he had Nathan Cleary on a string. Leka Halasima had Nathan Cleary on a string. Absolutely bulldozed him. Leka the Wrecker was wrecking Penrith. We saw the most insane forward pass not get called. The Warriors very lucky they come out on the good side of history and get the win, because that forward pass that didn't get picked up, disgraceful that it didn't get picked up. Yep, I understand the ref was in an awkward position to see that, but the touchy who's in line with the ball and in line with the play can clearly see that Penrith throw the ball forward. Disgusting. But we got that tip right. That was a little bit of an upset, if I'm going to be honest. Like, a lot of people didn't expect that. But I did. What can you say? Just the tipping GOAT right here. Clip. But is saying that Penrith did nearly have a comeback. Nathan Cleary, with 12 minutes left, scores a try, kicks a 40-20, and has a try assist, all in the span of less than 3 minutes. I gulped. I went, The Waz could be in trouble here. But James Fisher-Harris shuts down wasn't a try, but the next attempt at a try. Drop ball by Penrith. James Fisher-Harris putting the pressure on there, saving what could have been a disaster. We then go again. Penrith. Cleary puts up a bomb. They score. Fortunately, Liam Martin offside. Try disallowed. So it could have turned really bad really quick for the Waz, but they were just too good, and made me happy. Made me very, very happy. On that, we move on. Roosters versus Bulldogs. Roosters had them tipped. They got the win there. A lot of chats about Sam Walker. We'll dive into that in a second. But yeah, Bulldogs do not prevail. Storm Manly, Cooper Johns Cup. We had the return of the Cooper Johns Cup. I tip Storm. They get it done over in Perth. No worries there. No wuckers. Dolphins versus Broncos. How do you sell a 24-0 lead? I tipped the Dolphins because I just understand footy. You people might not understand it, but I understand it. Oh my gosh. The Broncos are actually the worst team in the comp, and mathematically, the Dragons can still beat the Broncos on the ladder. And at this rate, I hope it happens with their poor performance. It is the worst premiership defense ever, and it can only get worse, I reckon. It genuinely can only get worse. And I'm going to back, after the Dragons, we'll touch on in a second, but the Dragons, they could be on. They were very threatening against, well, not just threatening against a top four side. They beat a top four side. In that sense. So the Broncos are looking like, honestly, I would have them as the favourites for the spoon, even though the Dragons have a lot of work to do if they want to avoid that. But yeah, giving up a 24-0 lead, the Dolphins chasing it down, and then the final score being 40-32 or whatever. The Finns just get Queensland footy. Finns up. They own Suncorp now. So sorry if you are a fan of the Broncos, but you guys are just trash, honestly. Trash. Raiders versus Knights. We should have had this game sorted. But no, Big Red throws it away. Saw a little bit of Hopewade action on Dane Gagai after review. Big Red. Where do we even start with you, mate? Selling the game, yes. Newcastle got the win, obviously. We're talking about it. They shouldn't have. The Raiders probably were the better side. I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, we'll just leave it there. We'll talk about it a bit more in a second. Dragons versus Sharks. We had the Sharkies tip, but the Dragons pull up the upset of the round is what I'm calling it. When you have, what do you call it, the bottom of the ladder beat a top four side, absolutely is an upset. Absolutely is an upset. Like Sharks are in fourth. 17th beats them. It's looking good for the Dragons. The Broncos only have 6 wins this season, and the Dragons are on their third, with more coming. The Broncos, I'd be concerned. Right, let's quickly talk about what else is going on. We've got some big news circling the NRL. Let's start off with the biggest news. Brian To'o, he signed with PNG. 3 years in PNG, and that's put the comp on notice that I think 007 for PNG Chiefs is Nathan Cleary. I don't see a world where it's not. Things aligning with that. Jet Cleary asking for an early release from the Warriors. He wants to come back to Penrith. Do we see a Jet Cleary and a Nathan Cleary and an Ivan Cleary trio all at Penrith for the last season, that they'll all be there? We then see Nathan Cleary go off to PNG and make millions. We then, well, where do we see Jet go? Probably stays at Penrith. But man, that's huge news in both of those. The only thing that might contradict that at the moment is there's a lot of talks of Sam Walker going to PNG. Now, they're waiting till November 1 for him to be off contract and to talk to him. It's going to be interesting what happens there. I've got no idea. I don't know the answer. You guys probably have a better idea than I do. Well, probably not true, but it's interesting just all of this happening at the moment. Rumours, PNG is assembling the Avengers. On the other hand, you've got Perth, who probably not as fortunate as what PNG is. Definitely not. They don't have no tax-free incentive, which obviously is a huge thing, having a tax-free incentive. Because, like, someone broke it down, Bizza, if he's on 600, 700K, he's getting taxed $16,000 a month. But now with that, so that's what, do the math, Will. So if he's on 700, he is roughly making 60K a month. That's how you look at it, just under 60K a month. Tax 40% of that, because you'd be in that bracket. So 40% of that is like 16K roughly. So you go from, you look at it, he's probably about 40K if he's anywhere else on 600,000, 700,000, around that. He's now on 60K. That's so much money. I definitely don't make that in here. I've never made that much money in my life, and Biz is making that in a month now. Huge. Like, tax-free is just insane when you think about it like that. Blows your mind, blows mine, and it's really pulling the player. I don't think the fans, including myself, I don't think the fans, the media, the journalists, the coaches, so many people realised that the tax-free incentive would be such a big grab for them. They thought the living situation in PNG would be so bad that the tax incentive wasn't enough. But clearly it's not that case. Clearly, it's just not that way. And the tax-free money basically means you're almost making double the money you are already on. A 600K contract, break down simple numbers, a 500K contract in the NRL, you get taxed about 40% on that. That's what you're really taking home, 300K a year. 500K at PNG, you're taking home an extra 200K because you're not getting taxed. That is huge. That is like, and so many people are just realizing it. And I just don't think anyone that surrounds the NRL, fans, coaches, managers, media, or maybe managers, but media, didn't realize that it was going to have that much of an impact. Let's leave it there. Let's put a pin in it, talk about that later. Another news, Big Red today just signs with the Perth Bears. Big Red had a blow up on the weekend, got sin binned. I think that's his last game we'll ever see him play in the lime green of the Canberra Raiders. He's not listed on the team this week, and rightly so. He sold us that game, definitely. We had the penalty right in front, and then he slapped Dan Gagai. Oh, man. Big Red. You guys know I love Big Red, especially Queenslander and a Canberra Raider. But he's a great footballer. He is, but he's just such a liability in the way he does dumb stuff like that. And Ricky's had enough. We've lost too many games because of dumb brain snaps like what Corey Horsburgh has just done his whole career, unfortunately. And Ricky's had enough. So Corey's off. There was rumours of him going to Brisbane or going up to a Queensland club. It's been squashed. He met with Mal Meninga yesterday. Will Mal be good for him? I would say so. They'll have the connection of both being from the Raiders, both being Queenslanders. I think Mal's mentoring will be really good for Corey. It's sad to see him go in that aspect, but we can't have a liability in that team when we want to win a premiership. And our premiership window is just opening right now. Ethan Sanders coming into form. We've got the youngest spine in the comp. You go, what? Kyle Weeks, 22. Ethan Sanders, Ethan Strange, 21, 22. Owen Paddy around that same. Like, you've got a spine that's average 22 age. That's insane. And then you look at the Broncos and the spine there is, what? 30. No, not quite, but you know what I mean. Like, it's a very young team, a lot of potential, and we'll see it come to fruition soon. Let's jump into NRLW round 7 and then the NRL round 24. Jeez. The end of the season's coming quick, but okay, NRLW, kick us off. We've got Titans versus Dragons. Easy choice here. Let's pick the Titans. Parramatta versus the Dogs. Let's go Doggies. Broncos versus Roosters. After the Broncos losing to the Raiders and Ali Brigginshaw still out, I'm going to go with the Roosters here. Knights versus Raiders. After the Raiders win over the Broncos, I got to pick them again. Up the Raiders, up my team. Let's go. Tigers versus Warriors. Let's tip the Wires on this one. Cowgirls versus the Sharks. I think the Sharkies get the win there. Round 24 for the men. Penrith versus Roosters. We will touch on this because I got sent something on the Fandemonium, our last segment. But here is my take. Penrith don't finish in the top 2. They don't get a home final. I'm not saying that they don't win the first week of finals, but they won't get a home final this series because I think the Wars and Roosters are going to be 1 and 2. I don't know who wins minor premier. I don't know who wins the minor premiership out of those two, but I think Penrith fall out. They've got a few injuries. Isaiah Yo's out. Dylan Edwards not named on the starting side. He's on the extended bench, so maybe there could be a last-minute change there. But I think the Roosters get the win here, and we see Penrith finish 3rd and 1 and 2 be either the Roosters, Wars, or Wars Roosters. Manly versus Dolphins at Brookie. Let's go the Dolphins. Fins up. Got to go for a Queensland team this week. Dogs, Bunnies. Let's tip the Bunnies here. They had a very close call against Parramatta last week, nearly blowing a 28-0 lead. I hope they get the win over the Bunnies. That's the only over the Doggies. That's the only reason why I'm picking the Bunnies. Sharks versus Raiders. Sharkies lost to the Dragons. Not a lot of teams have done that this season. So let's go the Raiders up the milk. 40 plus. Let's go. Parramatta versus Cowboys. I reckon the Cowboys get the win here. I actually am going to change that tip right now. I think the Cowboys are going to get the win here. Knights versus Titans. Let's go Titans just because I want them to beat the Knights. And then Tigers versus Dragons. Let's go Dragons. The Dragons are going to get a win. Another one. And they're going to get the job done and beat the Broncos this season. Done. That is the NRL W round 7 and the NRL round 24. It's time for my favourite segment. You guys voted earlier this week. And between the name, Fandemonium or the Fan Forum. And we've come up with the Fandemonium. So, guys, it's having great response from you guys. I'm loving doing it. I hope you guys have fun getting involved. I think it's pretty cool. But let's start off with some messages I was sent. We got a bit of AFL stuff first. And one of you guys just sent in the top 10 is a lock. AFL season, regular season is done. Well, not done, but it's done and locked in that is the top 10. Fair enough. One of the boys, Fremantle, will go out in straight sets just like the Crows and Raiders did last year. Let's not remind me about the Raiders going out straight sets last year because I will throw straight sets at your head with my hands. But also, in addition to that, the AFL's new wildcard round is great for the sport. It means teams are in final contention for longer, leading to less tanking and dead rubber matches, which is the first edition in the last 5 years that the AFL are ahead of NRL in. Honestly, I don't hate that take. The wildcard round is pretty cool. So if you're in, they've added finals teams. So instead of having a top 8, you have a top 10. 10th, 9, 8, and 7th, they play off a round, and the 2 winners of that basically go to your top 8 type thing. I actually do like that. It's pretty cool. concept. The NRL, I actually wouldn't mind if the NRL adopt that. Oh, just been reminded by one of the fans of something. Hopefully it's saved, if I can find it. But, yes, I think that's a very interesting take there. I do like that. And yeah, I think the wild card round is actually, I know it copped a lot of heat last year or earlier this year when it got announced, but in all honesty, I think it is a cool concept, and you're right. It means 2 more teams are in contention and teams are in it for longer, which just makes the comp exciting all around. And then also we've got a hot take. We did more in Dan Does Footy's comment section than he did for his whole entire AFL career. That is correct, and I agree with that. Fandemonium take could be the take of the week. Not 100% sure on that, but let's move on. I think I've got a few NRL ones that we will talk about. We definitely have a few NRL ones. Let's pull them up. Here we go. We just got Dragons winning the comp, lad. They might win the comp against the Broncos for 16th, or the wooden spoon, but yeah, they could win the comp next year. They're looking very deadly. No, but low-key, I reckon the Wilds could be back. 2 weeks ago, I thought they were spent, but now they are making another charge. Depending on how their next game goes, will be telling. Absolutely agree with that. They beat the Broncos here. As I said, I reckon they're in that top 2. I reckon it's a Roosters top 2, a Roosters Wilds top 2. You say goodbye to Penrith. Penrith drop down to 3. They're not fading. I just think there's a few gaps for Penrith at the moment that they're dealing with. It's a great take. I'm a fan of that after seeing how the Wilds performed against Penrith. Now, I think we got some new voice messages from a few people. Let's have a look if it's here. No, I've got one. The idea and concept of having a third place game, final in the NRL to make it an NRL fanatic week or bring some more hype to the game is an awful idea. That's what one of the boys said in. I absolutely agree. I hate the idea of a third place cup or a bottom 8 knockout, and you put money on it. Stupid. Let's do something different. If you want to make it a festival, a grand final week, this is what I've got for you, NRL. Sit down and take notes. So your players that already are done, your players that are not in the grand final that week do not want to pick up footy. They want to get on the beers and they want to forget about their losses. They want to celebrate the season that they had, good, bad, or they just want to drink their sorrows away, whatever. Yes, a massive cash sum would probably be incentivizing. But here's what, as a spectator and I guess as a development, you should do. Entertaining. You get 16 teams in. Or whatever. You have all the teams, how many teams there can be. If you're doing it like how there is, 17 teams. But I don't know how that works, because not every team has a reserve grade side like they do, but they have them for Queensland, for example, the Broncos, they're split over multiple Queensland Cup sides, things like that. It's not directly like the Raiders and then the Raiders New South Wales Cup side. It's a bit different, but if they could work this out a little bit, I reckon an under-20s or an under-21s comp, but instead of classic footy, it's an under-20s comp of NRL 9s. You see how the World Cup 7s, the World Rugby 7s does things, and they have a massive festival. It's awesome. Bang, that week, going into the finals, under 23s or whatever age, under 20s, under 21s, under 23s, whatever you decide, or even if I don't think you put the older blokes in. I don't think you put your proper A-grade players in, because they're done with their season. Let them rest, let them have fun, let them enjoy. But you give the guys and girls, I reckon you do rugby league and, women's and men, and you give them a run on a big stage. Give the people a festival for a week of rugby nines, round robins, and then the grand finals. You've already got on grand final day, the grand final, the NRLW grand final, the interstate cup final, whatever it's called. And then before that, early in the morning, because I know for a fact, if I wake up on grand final day and I see that there's footy being played at like 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm getting excited. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. You could even have, gosh, I haven't watched an NRL Nines game in so long. I can't even think of what like the halftime the rules are and things like the time. They're 9-minute halves, obviously. God, that's idiot. But it's so quick pace. Like, if you have an NRL Nines festival going into the week, and then you have the semi-finals of the men's and semi-finals of the girls straight up 8 a.m., 9 a.m. on Sunday morning of the NRL Grand Final, bang, and then you go straight into the finals after that. That would be huge. I think you give the young whippersnappers a good red hot chance at this. Let them get involved in like the fact that they get a stage and they get a taste of the big leagues. It's something different because yes, we've watched a whole season of 80-minute footy. Let's change it to 18 minutes of footy. Fast paced. Give some of these young guns that might have a unique ability or different playing style that might not get them into a reserve side or into an A grade side. Like, because yes, we do have a lot of young guys in the NRL, but like especially for blokes, like you don't really reach your full maturity and body growth and maximal strength until your mid-late 20s, so you still got a lot of development. So there's an NRL Nines comp that's going to play in the week of the grand final for under 21s or whatever. I think that could be really exciting, and that could be very awesome for the Like, I would love that. A week leading into the NRL grand final, there's more NRL, but it's a different format, super exciting. Festival style things like we see with the rugby sevens. I just think that would be so cool. You play the semi-finals morning of, and then you play the grand finals as well on the same day. Just makes it so much so much more interesting. It's a different outlook, and you get rid of this whole idea of a third place game or this whole idea of a bottom 8 knockout. Like, no, we're over that. So that's my thoughts. So that take, guys, I'm a huge fan of, absolutely huge fan of, and thank you for sending in saying that the NRL shouldn't have a third place game because it's stupid. Absolutely agree. Thank you on that. Now, we've only got one voice message sent in this week. It's a bit of a doozy. It's a long one, but I'll play it for you guys.
Hey, mate, first-time responder, long-time listener. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. And personally, I'm sick of the fans. Not the oldies. They're pretty sweet, except for the fact that when you go to Magic Round, they'll toss a few lefts and rights. But me personally, I don't think any team has a bad or toxic fan base except for the Broncos. And I'm just on here to say, yeah, I just despise the Broncos and everything they're about. I think media-wise, they should be shut down, even the players. I think, honestly, they need to get their TikToks, Instagrams, et cetera, just all, just banned, taken off, revoked, thrown into a toilet and flushed down. I just think, personally, the media that they're getting around is just terrible. Like, every other team, you know what, deserves it. They should do their thing every week. But, honestly, I think the Broncos are too heavily into it. If I see one more TikTok about, Tony Staggs owning the Dolphins, or if I see Reece Walsh being the best player in the world one more time, I think I'm gonna stub I'm gonna put a toothpick in my toenail. I'm just gonna kick a door. So yeah, that's my 2 cents personally. Every team great. Broncos, I just think they need to get subbed out. I'm just sick of them. But yeah, thanks, mate. Really appreciate the food for thought.
There's a bit of food for thought for you, and I can't help but agree a little bit. But wait. You thought that was a rant. There's more.
Like Broncos players going on their social media, like focus on the footy, brother. Like we get that you won last year, but you are the first premiership winning team since 2006 to not make the finals. It's disgusting. It is revolting. And if I see one more friggin' TikTok edit about Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam, Tony Staggs, God, I love Hakeem Haas. I love him. I love him. And I think it's good that he's going to the Rabbitohs. But for God's sake, I'm sick of that team. Jordan Ricky, I'm done. Sorry, hopefully this stays. You know what? No. I want to be shown. God damn. Anyway, this is coming from a... Yeah, you know what? You don't even know what team I go for. Yep, so Broncos down. All right, thank you.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I think it's safe to say this man is a D1 Broncos hater. Rightfully so. I hate the Broncos after week 1 finals last year against the Raiders. Oh, got me rolled up about that. But yes, pretty boys get thrown around a little bit. Yes, agreed. You're here to play rugby. Yes, you got to build your own social media brand, but the Broncos fans take it to a next level of glazing, and it is insane. And a lot of those fans are probably like 15-year-old girls that fangirl over Reece Walsh and Tony Staggs, so they're making trash TikTok edits about them. So, yeah, for quite a bit of that rant from... Thank you for sending in your thoughts and letting me share that. I like the rant. It's valid. It is valid. I'm sick of it. Broncos down, and let's hope they get the wooden spoon this year, because that will be hilarious. From premiers to wooden spoon, there couldn't be a bigger downfall. Wow. That's huge. That's a wrap on the Fandemonium. Guys, this is a reminder. This is a reminder right now. If you want to share your thoughts, you want to hear out your thoughts, you want your thoughts to be public, shared with the world, this is your platform right here. Share your sporting thoughts here on What's Not Sports. They'll make it to the Fandemonium for the most of them, as long as it's not straight up abuse, rude, things like that, straight up crimes. We're not going to share that. But for the most part, feel free to share your sporting opinions. I'll talk about them, my thoughts on that, and thoughts around it. This is your platform. This is your opportunity to share here. So feel free to do it. I love it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a fun little segment. But that is the end of episode 83 of the What's On Sports podcast. We need an interview going on soon. We'll see what I can do. Still fixing up the studio. It's very bland, very boring. So there could be stuff happening soon. But that's the What's Not Sports podcast. I'm your host, Will O'Connor. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Pulse Check.